The massive crystal chamber stretched high above the assembled delegates, its walls pulsing with soft blue light that reflected off the varied forms of the galactic representatives. Ambassador Kang Minho stood alone at the center podium, his black diplomatic uniform making him look small against the towering alien figures that surrounded him in a perfect circle. The air hummed with tension as hundreds of eyes, sensors, and other detection organs focused on the lone human. Some delegates floated in containment fields, others stood on legs that bent in impossible ways, and a few existed as pure energy barely contained within mechanical shells. All of them shared one thing in common. They did not want humans in their galaxy-spanning government. Honored members of the Council, Minho began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. Earth requests membership based on our achievements in space travel, colonization, and peaceful contact protocols. A low rumble of disapproval rolled through the gathered aliens. The Vorthon delegate, a tall creature with blue scales and forearms, was the first to speak. Your species has been observed for 50 Earth years. We have seen your wars, your violence, your complete inability to solve problems without bloodshed. Behind, Minho, Captain Lee Dongyun shifted uncomfortably in his dress uniform. As Earth's military representative, he had expected hostility, but the raw contempt in the alien's voice surprised him. He watched as tentacled beings whispered among themselves, while insectoid delegates clicked their mandibles in what the briefings had described as expressions of disgust. We have maintained peace for 30 years, Minho replied calmly. Our colonies work together. We share resources and technology freely among our settlements. 30 years, hissed the Kalari ambassador, her purple tentacles writhing with agitation. We have maintained peace for 3,000 years. Your species fights wars over the color of skin, over invisible lines on maps, over which invisible beings you worship in the sky. The chamber filled with sounds of agreement. Clicks, hums, and electronic tones blended into a chorus of rejection. Minho felt sweat forming on his forehead despite the chamber's controlled temperature. Dr. Park Jiwon, Earth's chief scientist, stepped forward slightly. Honorable delegates, perhaps our different approach to problem-solving could benefit the AudioBook Council. Diversity of thought has always led to better solutions. Diversity? The Nexari Chancellor's voice echoed from its energy containment field. You call chaos diversity? Your species cannot even agree on basic facts about your own world. You have different languages, different governments, different economic systems, all on one small planet. That's exactly why we're strong, Captain Lee said, speaking for the first time. We've learned to work together despite our differences. We've survived and thrived because we adapt quickly to new situations. Several delegates made sounds that the translation systems rendered as laughter, though the tone was anything but friendly. The ethereal representative, a being that looked like living crystal, spoke with a voice like wind chimes. Adaptation through violence is not evolution, it is regression. You wage war for resources that could be shared, added the Vorthon delegate. You destroy your own planet's environment for short-term gain. You create weapons capable of ending all life on your world, then build more of them. Minho felt the tide turning against them completely. Every word he spoke seemed to make things worse. We've moved beyond those problems. Our colonies show what we can accomplish when we work together. 3. Colonies around nearby stars, the Kalari ambassador said dismissively. Children playing in their backyard and calling it exploration. We have member species with settlements across thousands of star systems. And how long did it take them to achieve that? Captain Lee asked. How many centuries of slow, careful expansion? We've done it in 50 years. Reckless speed is not achievement, the Nexari Chancellor replied. It is proof of dangerous impulsiveness. Your species makes decisions based on emotion, not logic. This makes you unpredictable and therefore dangerous. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. Every human achievement was dismissed as primitive. Every diplomatic overture was rejected as manipulation. Every attempt to show Earth's peaceful intentions was met with examples of human violence from decades past. Finally, the ethereal representative called for the vote. All in favor of accepting Earth's application for council membership? Silence filled the chamber. Not a single delegate raised an appendage or activated a voting signal. The application is denied, the Nexari Chancellor announced. Furthermore, the human species is hereby restricted to their home system. Any attempt to expand beyond Sol's boundaries will be considered an act of aggression against the galactic community. Minho's face went pale. This was worse than simple rejection. They were being imprisoned in their own solar system. This decision is final and not subject to appeal, the ethereal continued. The human delegation will depart immediately. As security escorts moved to surround them, Captain Lee leaned close to Minho's ear. This conversation is being broadcast to every human colony. They're watching us get humiliated. Minho nodded grimly as they were led from the chamber. Through the crystal walls, he could see the vast fleet of council ships that enforced their will across the galaxy. Earth's small navy was nothing compared to this massive display of power. But as they walked toward their transport, Minho couldn't shake the feeling that the council had just made a terrible mistake. They had judged humanity by their past instead of their potential. They had chosen fear over opportunity. The galaxy would learn the difference soon enough. 6 months after humanity's rejection, the Deep Space Monitoring Station at the galaxy's edge detected something that made veteran sensor operator Kim Hyesu drop her coffee cup. The ceramic shattered on the metal floor as impossible readings flooded her screens. "Commander Yoon, you need to see this," she called out, her voice shaking slightly. Commander Yoon Hana floated over in the station's low gravity, her boots clicking softly on the deck plates. The monitoring station was a joint council operation, staffed by multiple species to watch for threats from outside the galaxy. In 300 years, they had never seen anything like this. "What am I looking at?" Yoon asked, studying the sensor display. "Movement from Andromeda Galaxy," Kim replied, adjusting the controls to focus the readings. "Mass readings suggest, Commander, these numbers can't be right. It shows hundreds of thousands of objects, all moving in perfect formation, the Vorthan." Science Officer Zextai slithered over on his forearms. His blue scales darkened with concern as he examined the data. "Impossible. No fleet could be that large. Check the sensors for malfunction." But the sensors were working perfectly. Over the next several hours, the readings became clearer and more terrifying. The approaching fleet was real, massive beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen, and moving at speeds that should have been impossible for ships of their size. "Send immediate warning to the Council," Yoon ordered. "Priority Alpha transmission." The first contact came 3 days later at the mining world of Kepler Station. The planet's defense coordinator, a Kalari named Nelvara, watched her screens, in growing horror as the unknown fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. The ships were unlike anything in the Council databases. They looked organic, like massive insects or sea creatures stretched across kilometers of space. Their hulls pulsed with dark energy, and they moved with a coordination that suggested a single controlling intelligence. "Unknown vessels, this is. Kepler Defense Control. Nelvara broadcast on all frequencies. You are entering Council space without authorization. Please state your intentions." The response came not in words but in action. The alien ships opened fire with weapons that seemed to tear holes in space itself. Kepler Station's defensive platforms, armed with the most advanced Council technology, simply vanished when the dark energy beams touched them. The mining world died in 6 hours. Every living thing on the surface was consumed, along with the planet's entire crust. The alien ships grew larger after feeding, their hulls bulging with absorbed matter and energy. News of Kepler's destruction reached Admiral Jian Wubin 3 days later. He commanded the Council's Third Fleet, one of their most powerful military formations. His mixed crew of different species had trained together for decades, representing the finest military thinking in the galaxy. "Sir, we have visual contact with the enemy fleet," reported his tactical officer, a cybernetic being from the Nexus Collective. Wubin studied the main display as his ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. What he saw made his stomach tighten with fear. The alien fleet filled the entire sensor screen. thousands upon thousands of organic ships moving like a swarm of angry insects. All ships, maintain formation, he ordered through the fleet communications. Target the largest vessels first. They must have command ships controlling the smaller ones. The Third Fleet attacked with precision and coordination. Their energy weapons lit up space as they struck the alien vessels. Several of the smaller ships exploded in bursts of dark matter, but the larger ones simply absorbed the damage and kept coming. "Sir, they're not following standard attack patterns," his science officer reported. "They're moving as a single organism, adapting to our tactics in real time." The alien ships responded with a coordinated assault that overwhelmed the Council Fleet's defenses. Their weapons didn't just destroy ships, they consumed them, breaking down the matter and energy to feed the organic hulls. Crew members who tried to escape in life pods were captured and absorbed into the alien vessels. "All ships break formation and scatter," Wubin ordered desperately. "Use hit-and-run tactics." But the enemy had already learned their attack patterns. The alien ships anticipated every move, surrounded every escape attempt, and showed no mercy to surrendering vessels. Within an hour, the Third Fleet was gone, consumed entirely by the advancing swarm. Wubin's flagship was among the last to fall. As the organic ships closed around him, he managed to send one final transmission. "They're not just destroyers. They're consumers. They eat everything they touch and grow stronger. The galaxy is not prepared for this." Word of the Third Fleet's destruction spread panic through Council space. The ethereal High Command called emergency sessions to discuss strategy, but their debates moved too slowly. While they argued about proper military protocols and acceptable casualty rates, entire star systems vanished into the advancing swarm. The aliens earned their name from a surviving Kalari pilot who escaped their attack on the Nexus shipyards. They devour everything. Ships, planets, stars, even space itself seems to feed them. They're devourers, and they're heading for the galaxy's core. On Earth, General Ominsu watched the intercepted transmissions with growing concern. The human military had been quietly monitoring Council communications since their rejection, and what they saw terrified them. "They're fighting like they're in a training exercise," he told his staff. "All formation flying and coordinated attacks. Against an enemy like this, they might as well be throwing rocks." Colonel Han Yujin nodded grimly. "Should we offer assistance?" "They won't accept it," Minsu replied. "Not until they have no other choice." The Devourers continued their advance, consuming everything in their path and growing stronger with each victory. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been running for 18 hours straight. In the Great Crystal Chamber, representatives from dozens of worlds argued while their star systems burned. Outside the massive windows, refugee ships from the Outer Rim filled the space around the capital world, carrying survivors from planets that no longer existed. Counselor Nexitari, one of the younger Kalari representatives, floated nervously in her containment field. Her purple tentacles writhed with frustration as she listened to the same arguments being repeated for the 100th time. "The situation requires immediate action," she said, her translator converting her thoughts into words the other species could understand. "Our current military strategies are failing. We have lost 47 star systems in the past month." The Vorthan Chancellor, his blue scales now pale with stress, hissed his disagreement. "We will not abandon 3,000 years of civilized warfare doctrine. Our methods are precise, efficient, and moral. Our methods are useless against an enemy that doesn't follow rules," Nexitari shot back. "The Devourers don't care about our battle formations or our weapons restrictions. They consume everything and adapt to our tactics within hours." The ethereal High Commander spoke with a voice like breaking glass. "We are not barbarians. We do not wage total war. We do not sacrifice civilians. We do not use weapons of mass destruction. These principles define us as civilized beings." Nextari's tentacles darkened to deep purple, a sign of extreme agitation among her species. "What good are principles if we're all dead? The Devourers have no civilians, no non-combatants. Every ship, every creature in their fleet exists only to consume and destroy." Several delegates made sounds of disapproval, The Nexari representative, existing as pure energy within a mechanical shell, spoke coldly. You suggest we become like them? You want us to abandon everything that makes us better than mindless destroyers? I suggest we learn from species that understand survival, Nexitari replied quietly. Perhaps the humans could offer insights into unconventional warfare. The chamber erupted in angry sounds. Clicks, hisses, electronic tones, and energy discharges filled the air as dozens of species expressed their outrage simultaneously. Absolutely not, the Vorthon Chancellor declared. We will not legitimize their primitive methods. Humans solve problems through violence and chaos. That is exactly what we rejected them for. Their violence might be what saves us, Nextari argued desperately. They've been studying our battles with the Devourers through intercepted communications. They might have ideas we haven't considered. The ethereal High Commander's crystalline form flashed with angry light. We are the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. We have technology and knowledge accumulated over millennia. What could a species that still fights wars over skin color possibly teach us? Meanwhile, on Earth, General O. Minsu stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching holographic displays that showed the advancing Devourer fleet. His staff of human officers studied the alien tactics with the focused attention of predators analyzing prey. They're making the same mistakes, over and over, observed Colonel Han Yujin, pointing at the tactical display. Look at this battle at Rigel Station. The Council fleet maintained formation even as they were being surrounded. They never broke away, never tried anything unexpected. It's like watching ancient naval battles, added Commander Park Soon-young. All lined up in neat rows, taking turns shooting at each other, against an enemy that fights like a swarm of angry wasps. General Minsu nodded grimly. The Council treats war like a chess game. Rules, formations, proper procedures. But sometimes war is more like a street fight. Sometimes you have to be willing to bite, scratch, and throw dirt in the enemy's eyes. Communication officer approached with a message tablet. Sir, we're receiving unofficial transmissions from Council space. Looks like some of their younger representatives are trying to make contact. The message was coded and came through back channels, but its meaning was clear. A small faction within the Council was desperate enough to consider human assistance, even if they couldn't admit it officially. Dr. Lee Suyon, now serving as Earth's unofficial ambassador to the galaxy, decoded the message in her laboratory on Mars. The transmission came from Counselor Nexitari, and it was brief. Your species understands warfare differently. We need that understanding now. But this contact must remain secret. Lee immediately contacted General Minsu. They're starting to crack. Fear is making them desperate enough to consider our help. But only unofficially, Minsu replied. They still won't admit they need us. Their pride is killing them, but they can't let it go. The unofficial communications continued for days, while the Devourer fleet advanced deeper into Council space. Young representatives from various species sent coded messages asking for tactical advice, weapon designs, anything that might help stop the advancing swarm. But the official Council position never changed. In public sessions, they continued to debate proper military protocols while their worlds burned. They discussed casualty reduction methods while entire populations were consumed. They argued about rules of engagement while facing an enemy that recognized no rules at all. Captain Shin Jae-won, commanding one of Earth's newest battleships, received orders to prepare for immediate deployment. They don't want our help officially, his commander told him, but they're going to get it anyway. We can't stand by and watch the galaxy die because of their pride. The Council's arrogance was costing them everything, and soon it would be too late for pride to matter. The human fleet that emerged from the Sol system looked nothing like the neat formations the galaxy was used to seeing. Admiral Cho Kyung-soo commanded over 300 vessels, but less than half were actual military ships. The rest were converted. Cargo haulers, mining vessels, research ships, and even luxury cruisers hastily fitted with weapons and armor. Sir, we're receiving protests from the Kalari Defense Fleet, reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Kim Min-soo. They're demanding we follow standard battle formations and council warfare protocols. Kyung-soo smiled grimly as he studied the tactical display. The Kalari homeworld was under siege by a massive devourer swarm, and the planet's defenders were losing badly despite their superior technology. Tell them we appreciate their concern, but we didn't come here to follow their rules. The first thing that shocked the council forces was how the human ships moved. Instead of maintaining neat lines and formations, they scattered across the battlefield like a swarm of angry insects. Each ship acted independently, striking at different targets and using completely unpredictable tactics. Commander Lim Soo-yun piloted her destroyer toward the largest devourer bioship, ignoring the plasma fire that melted her hull plating. Her ship was packed with experimental explosives that the Council had banned as too dangerous to use in space combat. "This is for everyone they've consumed," she whispered, as her ship collided with the alien vessel at full speed. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. Both ships were destroyed instantly, but the massive devourer bioship took 17 smaller vessels with it, as burning debris scattered across space. The surviving Council pilots watched in horror and amazement, as a single human ship eliminated more enemies than their entire fleet had managed in hours of fighting. Captain Ryu Jinwoo led a squadron of converted civilian ships against a cluster of devourer vessels that were feeding on the wreckage of a destroyed space station. His ships didn't have military-grade weapons, but they carried mining equipment designed to break apart asteroids. "Target their feeding tubes," he ordered his pilots. "They can't consume matter if they can't process it." The mining lasers and drilling equipment carved through the organic ship's feeding mechanisms, causing them to release clouds of half-digested matter back into space. The devourers reacted with confusion, their perfect coordination disrupted by the unexpected attack on their feeding systems rather than their main hulls. Colonel Park Young-ho commanded a fighter squadron made up of ships that violated every Council safety regulation. They were fast, lightly armored, and carried weapons that Council engineers considered suicidally dangerous to the pilots using them. "Remember, they think like a hive mind," he told his pilots over the communication system. "They predict our moves based on logical tactics, so let's be completely illogical." His fighters began performing maneuvers that made no military sense. They flew backward while shooting, used their own ships as shields for each other, and even rammed smaller devourer vessels with reinforced nose sections designed specifically for that purpose. The devourer swarm, which had adapted to every Council tactic within hours, found itself unable to predict what the humans would do next. Every time they adjusted their formations to counter one human strategy, the humans switched to something completely different. Dr. Seo Yoonji, serving as a tactical advisor aboard the flagship, studied the battle data with fascination. "They're learning our patterns, but we keep changing the patterns faster than they can adapt. It's like they're trying to solve a puzzle that keeps changing shape." The human fleet employed weapons that the Council had banned centuries ago. They used gravity bombs that crushed enemy ships into tiny balls of compressed matter. They deployed quantum torpedoes that caused enemy vessels to phase out of normal space-time. They even used simple kinetic projectiles fired at incredible speeds, turning chunks of metal into devastating weapons. What truly horrified the Council observers was the human attitude toward casualties. When devourer ships targeted human vessels with overwhelming firepower, the crews didn't surrender or retreat. They rammed their damaged ships into enemy formations, using their own destruction as a weapon. Commander Oh Seung-min watched his cruisers, hull split open under devourer fire. Instead of abandoning ship, he ordered all power to the engines and aimed directly at a cluster of enemy vessels. "Tell my family I did what had to be done," he told his crew as they evacuated to the remaining life pods. He stayed at the controls, guiding his dying ship into the heart of the enemy formation. The explosion took out 12 devourer ships and damaged dozens more. To the Council forces, it looked like senseless suicide. To the humans, it was a calculated sacrifice that saved hundreds of lives on other ships. Admiral Kyung-soo coordinated the chaotic battle from his flagship, watching as his scattered fleet slowly gained the upper hand through sheer unpredictability and willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. "Sir, The Kalari commander is requesting permission to join our attack formation, Lieutenant Kim reported. Tell them they can follow us if they want, Kyung-soo replied. But we're not slowing down to hold their hands. This isn't a training exercise. By the end of the engagement, humanity had lost 60% of their ships and over 10,000 crew members. But the Devourer fleet had taken its first real defeat, with massive losses that forced them to retreat for the first time since entering the galaxy. The Council forces watched in stunned silence as the surviving human ships regrouped, already planning their next assault. The galaxy had just witnessed the birth of a new kind of warfare, one that cared nothing for rules or proper procedures. The final battle began at Nexus Prime, the Council's capital world and the heart of galactic civilization. The remaining Devourer fleet had gathered there like a dark storm cloud, over 50,000 bioships surrounding the planet in preparation for the ultimate feast. Below them, the last Council defense fleets formed desperate formations around their most important world. Admiral Cho Kyung-soo's battered human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. His ships looked like they had been through a meat grinder. Hull plates were missing, weapons were jury-rigged from spare parts, and several vessels were held together with emergency welds and hope. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the HFY Chancellor," reported Lieutenant Kim Min-soo, his voice tight with exhaustion after weeks of continuous fighting. The transmission crackled with interference as it reached the human flagship. The HFY Chancellor's energy form flickered weakly within its containment field, clearly damaged from the ongoing siege. "Human vessels, this is Nexus Command. You will integrate into our defensive formations and follow established combat protocols. All weapons fire must be coordinated through our tactical center to avoid friendly casualties." Kyung-soo stared at the transmission for a long moment, then began to laugh. It wasn't a happy sound. Around the bridge, his officers exchanged grim looks as their commander's laughter echoed off the damaged walls. "They're about to be eaten alive and they still want to give us orders," he said, wiping tears from his eyes. "Open a channel." The response was broadcast on all frequencies so every ship in the system could hear it. "Nexus Command, this is Admiral Kyung-soo. You didn't want us involved when you had a choice. Now it's too late for conditions. We're here to end this war, not to follow your rulebook." The human fleet didn't wait for permission or coordination. They deployed immediately, using tactics that made the surviving Council forces gasp in horror. Captain Nam Ji-hoon led the first wave, his converted mining ship loaded with weapons that the Council had classified as war crimes. "Deploying quantum disruptors," he announced calmly, as his ship dove into the heart of the Devourer formation. The weapons tore holes in space itself, causing several bioships to collapse into themselves as their matter was scattered across multiple dimensions. Commander Lee Hyun-woo followed with a squadron of ships carrying gravity bombs. "Target their feeding clusters," he ordered. "If we can't kill them all, we'll make them too sick to fight." The bombs created artificial black holes that lasted for seconds, but those seconds were enough to disrupt the Devourer's perfect coordination. Bioships that had moved as one mind suddenly found themselves unable to communicate through their organic networks. The Council forces watched in fascination and terror as the humans employed every banned weapon in their arsenal. They used biological warfare agents designed to corrupt the Devourer's organic hulls. They deployed energy viruses that spread through the enemy fleet's communication systems. They even used devices that turned the bioship's own digestive processes against them. Captain Ryu Jinwoo commanded the most damaged ship in the human fleet, a cruiser that was barely holding together after multiple battles. His vessel's hull was cracked, his weapons were failing, and his life support was running on emergency power. "Sir, we're receiving orders to fall back and join the reserve formation," his tactical officer reported. Jinwoo smiled grimly as he studied the tactical display. A massive cluster of Devourer command ships was coordinating the final assault on Nexus Prime. "Negative. Plot an inner course for those command vessels. Full power to engines." "Sir, that's a suicide run. We'll never survive the approach. We don't need to survive," Jinwoo replied calmly. "We just need to get close enough." His ship accelerated toward the enemy formation, ignoring the plasma fire that was rapidly melting what remained of his armor. Other human vessels provided covering fire, sacrificing themselves to clear a path for his final attack. For humanity, Jinwoo whispered as his ship's reactor went critical. The explosion vaporized 17 Devourer command ships and left a hole in their formation that the rest of the human fleet poured through like water through a broken dam. The battle raged for 18 hours. When it finally ended, the Devourer threat was eliminated, but the cost had been enormous. 3/4 of the human fleet was gone, along with most of the Council's remaining forces. The space around Nexus Prime was filled with debris from thousands of destroyed ships. Admiral Kyung-soo stood in the ruins of the Council chamber, his uniform torn and blood-stained. Around him, the surviving alien delegates huddled in small groups, their perfect civilization reduced to scattered refugees. Ambassador Kang Minho, who had survived the rejection 6 months earlier, addressed the assembled survivors. Earth offers assistance in rebuilding, but this time we negotiate as equals, not as supplicants begging for acceptance. The silence that followed was deafening. The proud species that had once dismissed humanity as primitive barbarians now understood what they had unleashed through their arrogance and prejudice. Within days, Earth's colonies declared independence from any galactic authority. The Terran Federation was born from the ashes of the old Council, and within a decade, humanity had become the dominant military power in the galaxy. Dr. Lee Soo-yeon, now serving as Earth's first Minister of Galactic Affairs, summarized the transformation. In her final report to the human government, they feared our capacity for violence and rejected us for it. They never understood that our willingness to fight impossible battles was exactly what the galaxy needed to survive. The Council had learned too late that sometimes civilization needed barbarians to protect it.